Have you ever wondered why the moments that terrify you most often mark the beginning of something extraordinary? That trembling before the unknown, that rush in your chest, the unease that keeps you awake at night? What if it isn't weakness at all? What if it's the sound of your soul stretching beyond the edges of the life you've outgrown? Anxiety has been misunderstood for centuries. We've been told it's something to suppress, to fix, to silence, as if fear were an intruder rather than a messenger. But in truth, anxiety is not a malfunction, it is an initiation. When the universe wants to awaken you, it does not whisper comfort. It sends a pulse through your body, a vibration that says, you are standing at the threshold of your next becoming. This is the sacred paradox. The same energy that makes your heart race in fear is the very energy that fuels transformation. Anxiety is potential, pure, unrefined, electric potential. It is life force without direction, waiting to be shaped into purpose. You may feel like you are unraveling, but what's really happening is emergence. The soul trembles not because it is fragile, but because it is powerful, and it senses the vastness it is about to step into. Greatness does not arise from calm waters. It is born in the storms of uncertainty. It grows in the tension between what you have been and what you are called to become. When you feel anxious, you are not failing, you are evolving. You are touching the edge of your own freedom. Because anxiety, at its core, is a confrontation with possibility. It is the awareness that you could, that infinite roads stretch before you, and your next choice will shape who you become. And that realization, that dizzying, infinite awareness, can feel like falling through the sky of your own potential. You see, anxiety is the sacred dizziness of freedom. It's the body's reaction to awakening. It's what happens when your consciousness glimpses how vast your responsibility really is. Not the weight of the world, but the creative power within you. To shape it, you are free, terrifyingly free. And freedom always trembles before it learns to fly. Every great soul has walked through the corridors of anxiety. Not one artist, thinker, or visionary escaped its call. They all met that moment of unbearable tension between comfort and calling. That's the true birthplace of greatness, the moment when fear whispers, "Stay small," and the soul replies, "I can't." Anxiety is the invitation into that conversation. It arrives whenever you stand before a threshold, when you outgrow your old identity, your old certainty, your old safety. It asks, will you leap or will you shrink? And it will keep asking until you answer. But here is the revelation the awakened one discovers. You do not have to wait for the fear to vanish before you move. You have to move with it. Because the alchemy happens not when you escape anxiety, but when you transmute it, when you let its electricity become courage. The inner alchemist learns to listen to anxiety as sacred energy. They feel the racing heart not as danger, but as a signal. Something within me wants to expand. They breathe through it, whispering, "Show me what this energy is trying to become." And slowly, fear reveals itself to be excitement wearing a mask. The difference between the two is not sensation, it's interpretation. Both fear and excitement quicken the breath. Both make the body vibrate. But excitement says, "This is possible." Fear says, "This is impossible." The body doesn't know the difference. The mind does. And the mind can be retrained. So the alchemist learns to rewrite the language of anxiety. When the world begins to shake inside them, they no longer say, "I'm falling apart." They say, "I'm expanding beyond the old walls of who I was." This is not delusion, it's mastery. Because what you name, you claim. When you call anxiety destruction, you suffer it. When you call it transformation, you transcend it. That single reframe turns panic into power. The modern world teaches avoidance, to numb, distract, scroll, suppress. But suppression turns sacred energy into poison. It keeps your potential trapped, vibrating in a loop of fear with nowhere to go. Anxiety needs movement. It needs expression. It is the universe saying, create with this. So speak, write, dance, walk, pray, cry. Give the energy a shape, and you will feel its pressure turn into purpose. The most creative, passionate, alive people on this planet are not those who have never known anxiety. They are those who have learned how to use it. So they turn trembling into tempo. They turn tension into art. They turn fear into faith. And that's the secret. Anxiety, when met with awareness, becomes alchemical fire. It burns away illusions of control, perfection, and comfort, leaving only truth. The soul's greatness emerges not from escaping the storm, but from learning to stand within it without losing presence. So, if you are anxious right now, pause. Don't rush to silence it. Don't fight it. Breathe. Feel it fully. And then whisper to yourself, this energy is not my enemy. This is my becoming. Because it is. Every heartbeat of fear is evidence that something within you is awakening. A deeper intelligence, a sharper intuition, a readiness to live more fully than before. You are not broken. You are in transit, moving from the familiar into the infinite. Anxiety is not the obstacle to greatness. It is the raw material from which greatness is forged. It is the friction that sparks the soul's remembrance, the discomfort that calls you back to authenticity, the sacred trembling that says, there is more of you waiting to be born. There is a sacred moment hidden within every anxious thought where the soul waits to be reintroduced to its own strength. Most people run from that moment. They try to quiet it, medicate it, escape it. But the inner alchemist leans in. They understand that anxiety is not asking to be silenced. It's asking to be understood. Because beneath every wave of anxiety lies a message. Something inside you wants to move. Something wants to change, evolve, express. Anxiety is energy that has forgotten its direction. It builds, it trembles, it seeks release, and when you give it none, it loops, creating the very restlessness you dread. But when you learn to give that energy a purpose, it becomes power. The body's racing heart, the spinning thoughts, the tightness in your chest. These are not flaws in your design. They are the signs that your energy field is awakening, preparing to handle more light, more truth, more responsibility for creation itself. You are being rewired to hold the frequency of your next evolution. And rewiring always shakes the system before it stabilizes. So when anxiety rises, don't shrink. Breathe into it. Ask it softly, what are you trying to become? That question alone begins the alchemy. Because anxiety cannot survive in presence. It feeds on avoidance. But the moment you meet it with awareness, it begins to unravel. You'll notice that the energy starts to change texture, from chaos to charge, from panic to possibility. You begin to feel that same electricity as creative impulse. That's the first transmutation, from fear to flow. This is the art of energetic redirection, the way you teach the nervous system that this intensity is not danger, but expansion. The alchemist doesn't fight their emotions. They repurpose them. They turn tension into fuel, using the fire of anxiety to light their path instead of burn it down. Think of anxiety as untamed energy. Imagine it as lightning coursing through your body. If you resist it, it strikes. If you harness it, it illuminates everything. That's why anxiety often appears right before breakthroughs, because the soul is charging itself for a leap. You've felt it before, that tremor before a big decision, that heart race before sharing your truth, that trembling before a change you can't yet see. You called it anxiety, but it was the frequency of destiny knocking. The same vibration that paralyzes when resisted becomes propulsion when embraced. So how do you make that shift? By changing your relationship with the unknown. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty, but uncertainty is also the birthplace of miracles. The difference lies in perception. Most people experience uncertainty as a void, a loss of control. But the alchemist sees it as sacred space, the womb of creation. When nothing is certain, everything is possible. Anxiety is simply the energy of infinite possibility overwhelming a finite mind. The work, then, is not to eliminate the unknown, but to expand your capacity to stand within it, to breathe there, to trust there. This is where faith, not belief, but vibrational faith, becomes alchemy. Faith doesn't mean pretending you aren't afraid. It means remembering that fear is smaller than your purpose. It means feeling the trembling and moving anyway, knowing the energy of movement will transform the trembling into momentum. The soul evolves through that motion. Every step through fear strengthens your energetic core, like metal forged in heat. And just as fire refines gold, anxiety refines awareness. It burns away illusion, the illusion of control, of permanence, of safety and stagnation. It forces you to see that the only safety is in growth, in the alignment with your deeper truth. That's why your anxiety rises most when you are closest to transformation. It's your inner compass pointing toward the next leap. So instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling anxious?" ask, "What truth is my anxiety trying to reveal?" Sometimes it's showing you misalignment, the life you've built around expectations that no longer match your soul. Sometimes it's revealing potential, the bigness within you that scares the parts of you still clinging to comfort. And sometimes it's simply awakening your awareness, reminding you that you are alive, here, now, present, in the intensity of being human. Each time you face it, you reclaim power from the mind and return it to the soul. And gradually, anxiety becomes less of an enemy and more of a guide. It begins to whisper instead of scream. It becomes a gentle nudge saying, "Pay attention. Something sacred is shifting." This is when you begin to live as the alchemist. You stop labeling emotions as good or bad and start seeing them as frequencies to be harmonized. You begin to use anxiety as a tuning fork, aligning yourself with what is real and discarding what is false. Because the truth is, every emotion is intelligent. Fear protects. Sadness softens. Anger restores boundaries. And anxiety prepares. It primes your energy for expansion, calling forth strength you didn't know you had. In that sense, anxiety is not a symptom of weakness. It's a signal of readiness. It means your old identity is cracking and your new one is forming. So when your chest tightens, when your mind races, when your breath shortens, whisper to yourself, "This is the sound of rebirth." Let it move through you. Don't rush to fix it. Let it teach you the rhythm of surrender, the art of staying open in discomfort. Because that is where greatness is born, not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to feel it fully and still keep moving toward light. Every great artist, thinker, or spiritual being has felt the quake of anxiety before the creation emerged. They didn't conquer it, they conversed with it. They asked it to guide their hands, shape their words, expand their awareness, and it did. Because anxiety is the guardian of transformation. It stands at the threshold of every new chapter and asks, "Are you ready to become more?" If you can answer yes, through trembling lips, the universe will respond with alignment. You will begin to feel an intelligence inside the chaos, a rhythm in the restlessness. The same energy that once made you feel trapped will become the wind at your back. And that is the beginning of true greatness. There comes a moment on the path of awakening when you realize that anxiety isn't the enemy trying to destroy you. It's the guide trying to redirect you. When it riseth in your chest, when your thoughts spin and your breath shortens, it is rarely about danger in the external world. It is almost always your soul whispering, "This is not where you belong anymore." Anxiety is the friction that appears whenever you stay in a space that your energy has already outgrown. It shows up when your soul has moved forward, but your mind and habits have not yet followed. So rather than asking, "How do I stop being anxious?" begin to ask, "Where is my energy trying to lead me?" Sometimes the answer comes as a change of direction. Sometimes it's a truth you've avoided. And sometimes it's an invitation to step fully into a version of yourself that your comfort zone cannot contain. Because greatness does not bloom in the familiar. It is cultivated in the moments when life feels most uncertain. Anxiety, in its higher purpose, is divine restlessness, the awakening of the deeper self that refuses to live half-life. It shakes the foundations of the false so that the authentic can be built. You might feel it as unease in your career, disconnection in relationships, or a gnawing dissatisfaction with patterns that once felt safe. That tension is not random. It is the signal that the soul has a new curriculum for you. You can resist it, or you can listen. If you resist, anxiety becomes louder. If you listen, it becomes guidance. The choice is yours. Every moment of anxiety is a conversation between who you have been and who you are becoming. It says, "You can stay, but the cost will be your peace." Or, "You can leap, and the reward will be your becoming." And when you leap, when you follow that inner unease toward what feels more alive, even when it's uncertain, something miraculous happens. The energy that once felt chaotic begins to organize itself. This is how anxiety transforms into purpose. Purpose is not found in the absence of fear, but in the alignment of fear with truth. When your actions begin to match the frequency of your authenticity, anxiety begins to dissolve. Not because life is suddenly certain, but because your soul finally feels seen. The most anxious moments of your life often precede the most authentic ones. That's because the universe clears the false with trembling hands. The body shakes, the heart races, the mind panics, all because you are shedding identities that no longer fit the size of your spirit. What if you began to see your anxiety as a sacred shedding? Every pulse, every panic, every racing thought, a sign that you are being emptied so that something more aligned can enter. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. Kierkegaard called anxiety the dizziness of freedom. And he was right. When you finally see that you are free to choose, free to change, free to create, the vastness of that freedom can overwhelm you. You realize that your life is not predetermined, it is self-forwarded, and the realization of infinite potential will always shake the soul before it steadies it. Freedom is dizzying because it means accountability. It means you can no longer hide behind circumstance. It means the world you live in is a mirror of what you allow, what you believe, and what you speak. And so, anxiety rises as the body's honest reaction to awakening power. Your old self trembles because it knows it's about to dissolve. The way through it is not control, but compassion. When anxiety arrives, don't try to overpower it. Sit beside it as you would a scared child. Ask, what are you trying to protect me from? Then listen, not with your mind, but with your heart. You may hear, I'm afraid you'll fail. Or, I'm afraid you'll be alone. Or perhaps, I'm afraid you'll lose everything. When you hear these voices, don't argue. Comfort them. Whisper, it's okay. I am safe to grow. This is how you teach your nervous system. that expansion is not danger, it is destiny. When you speak gently to your fear, it relaxes. And in that relaxation, intuition begins to rise. That is the golden thread. Within anxiety, beneath every storm of worry, lies the soft voice of direction. Anxiety will tell you what to leave, what to heal, what to face. It points like a compass toward the work your soul came here to do. When you follow that direction with faith, life begins to flow again. The restlessness eases. You feel grounded, even in uncertainty, because you are no longer resisting what your soul already chose. And something beautiful happens. The same energy that once caused panic begins to fuel passion. You start creating. You start expressing. You start living, not to escape anxiety, but because you've learned to channel it. That's what true greatness is. Learning to turn tension into art, fear into focus, uncertainty into creation. Every great achievement in human history began with anxiety. The scientist trembling before discovery, the poet paralyzed before the blank page, the healer terrified to follow their calling, the spiritual seeker standing before the unknown. Each felt the same fear you feel now, and each said yes to it. They learned that anxiety is not a barrier to greatness. It's the doorway. Because no one walks into their higher purpose without shaking. The trembling is sacred. It means your body still remembers how divine power feels when it enters form. So the next time your chest tightens, don't say, "Something is wrong with me." Say, "Something vast is moving through me." Because anxiety is not a signal of failure. It is evidence that you are alive, conscious, and participating in the miracle of becoming. It is the fire that burns away what is small, so that only what is true can remain. And when you let it do its work, when you stop fearing the fire, you step into a new relationship with life itself. You no longer run from discomfort. You walk into it with reverence. You trust that if your soul sent you a storm, it also gave you the wings to rise through it. And that's when greatness happens, quietly, not in applause or recognition, but in the still moment when you finally say, "I trust my becoming." That trust is the birth of power. That trust is what transforms anxiety into purpose. And that purpose, the alignment between your fear and your faith, is what makes you unstoppable. There comes a moment when you stop asking, "When will this anxiety end?" and start whispering, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift, that single moment of surrender, is the exact point where fear transforms into wisdom. Because anxiety, in its highest form, is not chaos. It's a teacher. It is consciousness itself, pulling your attention to where the soul has grown silent. It shakes the foundations of your being, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you with more truth, more awareness, more presence. Every time you sit with your fear, instead of running from it, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every breath you take through trembling lungs tells the universe, "I am willing to stay awake." And that willingness to remain conscious in discomfort is the doorway to greatness. The souls who rise the highest are not those who never felt fear, but those who felt it fully and still chose love. They learned that anxiety, when integrated, becomes the compass of intuition. It heightens awareness. It deepens empathy. It strengthens presence. The anxious ones are the feelers, the seers, the translators of energy. They sense the subtle shifts in vibration before anyone else does. Their nervous system is a finely tuned antenna for change, and that sensitivity, when harnessed, becomes a gift of genius. What if your anxiety was never proof of your brokenness, but evidence of your sensitivity to truth? What if it's the soul's alarm clock, reminding you that you were never meant to live half alive, disconnected from your purpose? There is a certain greatness that only the anxious can access, a creative brilliance born from deep awareness. The same mind that worries about everything is also capable of perceiving everything. And once that awareness is directed, once it finds meaning, anxiety becomes momentum. It becomes focus. It becomes vision. It becomes leadership. Because you can't lead with compassion if you've never sat with chaos. You can't heal others if you've never learned to breathe through your own storms. And you cannot embody greatness without first facing the trembling that comes before it. Anxiety is the prelude to expansion. It's the rehearsal before the performance of your higher self. It's the universe making sure your energy system can handle the light you are about to carry. And that light is love. Pure, conscious, grounded love. You see, once you walk through anxiety consciously, you emerge with a heart wide enough to hold the world. You stop judging yourself for feeling deeply. You begin to realize that sensitivity is not weakness. It's the highest form of intelligence, the ability to sense truth before it takes form. The anxious one becomes the intuitive one. The restless one becomes the visionary. The fearful one becomes the flame carrier. For others still trapped in the dark, because now you know that fear and light are not opposites. They are dance partners. Fear clears the space, light fills it, anxiety shakes the walls, purpose rebuilds them. This is the secret the masters knew. The way to greatness is not to escape the human experience. It's to feel it fully and let it refine you. The diamond only becomes brilliant because of pressure. The star only burns because it collapses inward before exploding into light. And the soul only awakens because anxiety cracked the shell of certainty wide open. So, what if your anxiety is the pressure before brilliance? What if the very thing you've been trying to suppress is the same energy that will elevate you? When you start seeing anxiety as initiation, you begin to meet it with reverence. You breathe deeper. You listen more closely. You ask, what new power is being born in me through this? And the answer always comes: resilience, empathy, wisdom, faith. You discover that what once paralyzed you now propels you. The trembling becomes strength. The worry becomes awareness. The unease becomes alignment. This is what Kierkegaard meant when he said anxiety was the dizziness of freedom. It is the vertigo of awakening, that holy trembling when the soul realizes it can create, choose, and love without limit. And yes, freedom is dizzying, but it's also divine. Because when you finally stop fighting anxiety and start walking with it, you enter into partnership with life itself. You no longer see fear as failure. You see it as feedback. You realize that anxiety is just energy, reminding you to realign. And each time you return to presence, you strengthen the muscle of faith. Soon, what used to terrify you becomes sacred territory. You start speaking gently to yourself. You start making choices that feel true rather than safe. You start trusting that the same force that made you tremble was actually preparing you to soar. This is greatness, not perfection, not power over others, but mastery of self. The mastery that comes from knowing, I can feel everything and still be free. And freedom is contagious. When others see you standing calmly in your own storm, they remember their strength too. When you speak openly about your anxiety, you become a mirror for those still hiding theirs. Your courage awakens courage. Your light reminds others that the darkness was never meant to destroy them, only to deepen them. You become proof that the human experience, with all its trembling, is sacred. And so, you walk through life differently now. You move slower, you listen deeper, you speak more softly. Because you know, words carry frequency. Thoughts create form. Presence changes everything. You start blessing your anxiety instead of cursing it. You start thanking the moments that broke you because they were also the moments that built you. And in that gratitude, the storm quiets. Not because life is perfect, but because you are finally in rhythm with it. The anxiety you once feared becomes the energy that fuels your purpose. It becomes art, empathy, creation. It becomes the pulse of your greatness. And now, when it visits again, and it will, you no longer resist it. You place a hand over your heart and say, I know why you're here. Let's create something beautiful. Because that's what anxiety truly is. The invitation to co-create with the divine. To take what feels unbearable and turn it into gold. To live awake in a world that still sleeps. To feel deeply in a time that fears emotion. To rise, trembling but radiant, into your highest expression. And as you do, you realize something extraordinary. The universe was never testing you. It was trusting you. Trusting that you would transform fear into faith, tension into truth, and anxiety into greatness. If these words found you in a moment of fear, remember this. Your anxiety is not your enemy. It is your evolution in disguise. Tell me in the comments, what is your anxiety teaching you right now? Your words might be the medicine someone else needs. And if this message resonated, subscribe to this Temple of Awakening, where each week we walk together, through the shadows, into the light. You are not alone on this path. You are part of a generation learning to alchemize fear into purpose, doubt into destiny, and anxiety into greatness. Until we meet again, breathe deeply, speak gently, and remember, even your trembling is sacred.